Alright guys, welcome to RTX Pinball. Today we're going to be doing a review of the Star Trek Pinball pack for the Atgames 4KP. This will become available on the HDP at some point, but has not been announced yet. If you're a huge Star Trek fan, there's a good chance you've already bought this pack and you already have your opinion on it. This is my thoughts on the games and what you would think about them at the current price point in 2026 and going forward if you don't already have them. Obviously there's not a lot of new customers to this fan base in this community as of late, and a lot of you are really trying to discover what games should be purchased for your systems. This is one of the packs that I failed to do, along with Jurassic Park and Universal TV Studios Classics, so those are going to be the ones that I do here recently. So let's get into this, see what you guys think of it, and we'll give you my thoughts on it. So it's the three games in question are Deep Space Nine, Discovery, and the Kelvin Timeline, which was the movie tie-in with Chris Pine. So let's get started with Deep Space Nine first and see what you guys think. First of all, let's look over the table. Obviously these are all in 4KP. These are but they're being shown on a 4K display, but they're not 4KP as far as resolution. Generally these are about 1440p or even 1260p, depending on the game itself. And they all run at 60 FPS. That is the critical factor in making these games as good as playable as they are. As you look around the table, you'll notice it's a very beautiful table. Not a lot of jaggies really on anything. On this particular game, we have quite a few different animated elements. You have the captain here. You got kind of a wormhole that takes us to the Gamma Quadrant in this particular title. And you'll actually see some spaceships flying around and different things depending on the things that we do on the table. This one is designed by Thomas Crofts, who's my favorite Zen designer. Although he had a very difficult challenge of making a game or a movie or a show that is basically political in many ways. Not a lot of action, quite frankly, into a action-based pinball machine. So let's get into it, see what you guys think of the actual play game. So obviously there's a lot of political elements here, but Klingons, Cardassians, and Romulans and things like that, you get that option right off the gate, whether or not who you want to support and boost, and this kind of determines a couple different things over the course of the game. We'll go ahead and choose Klingons and take a shot. We're going to get a shot at a skill shot right away, which I missed, which would have been this glowing spot here. This game does have a lot of really nice movie tie-ins and assets. Being a Thomas Crofts game, it typically has a third flipper, which is very common, and that is true in this case as well. You'll have some really good sound effects with the sound effects kit. I'm going to go ahead and hit this shot here. You'll hear some of those effects as well. Spinner sounds really, really good. Ball seems a little small for this one, I will say, but that's pretty common to Zen Originals. But we can do our typical dead flips and such. I'm going to turn this up just a little bit, make sure you guys can hear everything. And I'll be quiet as well so you can hear some different sound effects when they pop up. Just like that. Difficult game. So this is Deep Space Nine. Not my favorite of the series. I grew up with Next Generation being the most popular when I was a kid. I did watch a lot of Deep Space Nine, however. And after this one, I kind of fell off the series. So there is a skill shot. Oh. And as typical, I don't play particularly well when doing the reviews, so please bear with me. I'm actually on the back glass for this table even today, which is pretty crazy to think of.
It's been a waste of resources, men, and equipment.
It would probably be wise not to upset the Klingons first.
So you pick a faction, and then you plunge the ball. And then if you can hit the skill shot, you can help that group out. Sound effects kits are pretty good on all of these tables. Some are a little stronger than others, of course. You can see some really good sound effects there. The best one being right there. It's a very deep kind of kind of sound effect. It is isolated to this upper left-hand corner, which is really great. You get to choose your missions. So in this case, we'll just choose Call to Arms.
Maybe they're not.
I love that they use the actual assets, and you can see the spaceships flying out, which is pretty cool. And then you have to hit shots according to their linking lights. Pretty straightforward, right?
We're going to mine the entrance to the room.
Pretty typical fare. This game doesn't do a lot of scoring outside of modes, so if you're not doing the modes, you're really going to struggle. Either you've got to have a multi-ball or modes going. There's just not a lot of points out there. There I was able to do a slap nudge to save the ball, but you can see I'm not getting a lot of points. And there's 2 nudges, so I really got to be careful with my nudging here. I tend to not be too patient with this game, and you need to be a little calmer and let the game come to you. So you see I'm getting some pretty good points. But yeah, not a lot of on-screen stuff going on. Even with the special effects on, there's just not a lot going on.
The wormhole have already provoked a response from the Dominion, who have sent their Vorta ambassador where you to speak with me. Mr. Wolf, activate the weapons array.
Oh, cannot see me hit the shot. We're gonna go cross shot here. No. Oh! Deep Space Nine in a nutshell. Very difficult game. It's a very pretty game, but not a lot going on. It's kind of simplistic in its nature. There's really 3 ramps, an orbit. The bumpers there's not a lot of shots going on. There's really just not a lot going on in general on this table. It's a tough table to really show because of the lack of progress you're going to get in this particular game. So we'll start over here and we'll try to show a little bit more off with it. But I will say this one's really tough to get into. I think it's probably one of the better games in this pack, however, which is crazy to say because it is quite simple and it's probably the least action-packed, if that makes any sense. So we'll talk about some of the intangibles at the end of this too, and what this pack means and whether or not you should get it or not. But it plays really, really well. It's really solid. I've never seen any bugs or anything like that. I've never had it crash that I can think of, so that's a good thing. Again, sound effects are really, really good. If you like Deep Space Nine, I mean, this is probably going to be one that you might really like. And again, wait for the sound effect. We'll start rocks and shoals.
Light supply by destroying the storage facility located on an asteroid deep in Cardassian space.
How can we do that, Captain? We'll never get closer to the fight.
And again, see, there's not much different. I'm hitting the same shot that I did in Call to Arms as I do from this one. There is some different opportunities, but the modes all feel pretty samey. There's basically 4 modes, and then it breaks down into a wizard mode. You have Call to Arms, Rocks and Shoals, Mirror Inconvenience in Sector 31, and then you have Battle for Cardassia. But there's just, it has these like timed modes where the score is literally going off the score as you're trying to take the shot. So the faster you can do things in this game, the better. And it can be really frustrating to get through a mode and have it be worth like a whole lot of nothing because you didn't do it fast enough. So that's kind of disappointing. I really struggle with this game in general. As I said, I really like Thomas Cross. I think he did a good a job as he could have done with this particular subset of the series. But a very difficult game in and of itself to be able to bring some action to. So if I had to rate this one, I'm going to give this one a 6. Like it's a solid game. I just don't know that there's a lot going on with it. The modes, like I said, are pretty samey. I do like the sound effects in it. I think they are quite good. If you like this series, you might like this table, but in general, if you're not a huge Star Trek fan, first of all, why are you buying a Star Trek pack other than just to collect them all? This one's okay. I'm gonna give it a 6. So there you go. That's my take on it. Again, it's beautiful. It's pretty simple, but a very difficult game in that regard. It's simplistic in its rule set, but very difficult in its actual execution. So this next one is going to be Star Trek Discovery. Now this is the one that came after Deep Space Nine. It only aired for 5 seasons, whereas Next Generation and Deep Space Nine both aired for like 7 seasons, I believe it was. This series I had never heard of, quite frankly. I don't know what happened, but this one completely went over top of my head. This game is kind of, shall we say, very different in a lot of ways. It has kind of an AI component to it, even back then, which is pretty interesting. It has this this impossible flipper, which is maddening to me. You can flip either this way or that way. So it can kind of do this or this, which is really strange. The playfield is beautiful in its layout, but the flow is just not there for this one. So we're going to play this one. I really struggle with this one. It's very confusing, even when you know the rule set. I've gone through the rule set pretty deeply, and I still don't feel like I have a full understanding of it. I had a pretty good score on this here and there. Very difficult game. So let's get into it, see what you guys think. Again, the ball is a little bit small on these ones. The physics are a little bouncy. Most Zen originals in general have this extra bounciness to their physics, even more so than the Williams tables. So that can be really difficult for playability of these, but it's not uncommon to their games. And this is exactly how they play on Pinball FX on consoles, either on Steam or on Switch, Xbox, or PlayStation. You're going to have the same type of thing going on. It's no different on here. You see this impossible flipper that kind of does its thing? See this here? You can have that actually fall in there and kind of dictate where the ball spawns, which is kind of a weird thing for pinball. There's no actual connection between these 2 points, but this game will kind of take that leap of faith for you and kind of teleport the ball to different locations. If you like digital pinball, that might be a thing that appeals to you. For purists, that's going to be kind of a problem. But this one doesn't give you any indication that you're plunging, other than it lights up really hard. So there's no, to me, it's just a full plunge. There's not really much you can do with it. The flippers don't seem particularly strong on this one. Like, they just don't have a whole lot of oomph to them. It has this really weird shot here where you kind of do a spiral. And I can do this thing where I can flip this flipper either way. So I can dump that back into this section up here, or I can literally have it fall that way. Or I can actually flip the ball either way. So if I want to, I can literally control that ball and flip it out like that way. So that impossible flipper, if you will, I guess would be controlled by magnets in some capacity. Really strong electromagnets could theoretically do that, I imagine. But it's something that I have a real problem with. You do get some level of animations down here, and you get the crew that you keep actually builds up in the upper left here. So there's a little bit of stuff here there's very isolated to this game. And this game is designed by Gasper Vierges, and I think he hasn't done a whole lot of games for Zen Studios, so this one might have been something where he went a little out there and did something a little different.
You can thank me later.
Some of the AI sound effects aren't too bad. I actually kind of like that. There's a way to get an extra ball here just by hitting all these discovery letters, but it's going to be very difficult. You have to do it per ball, and you can't do it every ball, so you only get it that one time. But it can be tricky to do. And like I said, the rule set in this one is pretty convoluted. There's a lot to it. Not a particularly fun table. It's one of the games I really just do not like on this platform. If I had to rate this one, I'd give this one a 4. Like, no matter how many times I've played this game, I cannot get into it. It's not something I enjoy. It has no flow to it. It feels more arcadey and less pinball-ish, if that makes any sense. Really struggle with this one.
It's firing at us.
So now we're into a mode called Klingon War. And it's really hard to even know what I would be doing. There's a couple of main shots here and here that you have to do. And even though you're playing that, and that's the entire game, believe it or not, I didn't feel like I did anything at all. Very strange game. It's one that I do not like. I'm very upfront about that. There's a section here where there's apparently, it's contextual. During the mode, the Klingon War, you're actually supposed to look at these spaceships and see the positioning of the spaceships, and that's supposed to give you some indication of what shots to hit and something like that. But it's very difficult to take your eyes off the playfield and put them on a location that doesn't really make sense contextually to what you're working on. Really struggle with this one. I'm only going to give this one a 4. It's just not a great table. I think they went a little too far out there, and I think just a more simplistic playfield. Even the one like Thomas Cross did for Deep Space Nine, even though it's a little more simple rule set, it's at least a very playable game. This one, kind of out there. I do like the music of it, and I like the back glass is pretty well done. But man, I really struggle with this one quite a bit. The last one is Star Trek, the Kelvin Timeline. So this one's based on the movie. This one is interesting. Has really good sound effects kit for this one. It's very, what's the word? It has a lot of depth to the sound effects and stuff like that. So that's really good. This one might have to turn down a little bit. We'll see how it goes. So I can explain this one. This one has some really cool tri-mode effect, if you will. There's a large wheel on the bottom half of the table when it pops up here. So you could stack modes all day long, and you're trying to fill out this wheel of modes. Again, movie assets, which are really, really cool. You have all these blue shots here, red shots here, and yellow shots here. Any and all of these missions can be, you can have a mission going for all three at any given time and kind of keep things going. You also have 4 flippers on this one. You have 2 upper flippers, 2 lower flippers. And then you have a lock ball system where you're going to lock a ball here, and then you have to hit a couple of these targets to unlock that again to get the third ball to lock. There's a gravity component to this one as well at one point, where the whole playfield feels like it's tipped, and so everything is being pulled to one side, and it really is kind of jarring. If you've played Jaws before, that has that swaying mechanic to it, that is kind of in play here as well, but it's always to the one direction. Strange game, but let's get into it. It is very pretty. I will say there's a little bit of jaggies, and the materials are a little cruddy on the ramps, but otherwise quite beautiful. And I actually kind of like these electrical netting for the ramps themselves going up there. I think that's pretty cool. You will see Captain get into the chair, and it'll spin around and does kind of cool different things there as well. Let's get into it.
The flashing light.
Again, straight up plunge. There's no real indication of a strength of plunge. And that's going to warp. That comes down and feeds the future multi-ball. You're going to have a lot of drains. This one drains a lot on the out lanes. Again, very small ball. Bouncy physics, which is a kind of a Zen original staple. We're used to seeing that. Again, great music, great sound effects. That's always going to be a staple of Star Trek. One thing that you can't see real well in this game is there is a depth to this table that you don't necessarily see all that well. So what I want to show here, if you'll notice, this part of this table is raised in the back, and so I've turned the table down so you could hear me a little bit better. There's a section here where the ball will actually accelerate when it comes off this upper rail. You'll notice there's a little line here. This is where the upper level is actually transitioning down. And so when this ball actually gets to this location, it starts to accelerate down, and it can actually catch you off guard coming off the orbits on both sides. You see this line here? So that is actually elevated. And it's not on a straight, nice angle. It kind of comes off at a very funky angle. So if it comes off on a high speed, you're going to get a very consistent roll. And if it comes off very slow, you'll get kind of an inconsistent kind of fall from that orbit. So definitely be on the lookout for that. It is something to look out for sure. We'll try to get into some of these missions, but you can see how I've got Nebula selected here for this side, Admiral for this side, and Transport for the red. And you'll see how that takes place here, and we'll kind of play it out and see what you guys think. Kind of fighting it off right now. All three of these are really tricky games. You can see this kind of ball. See how that ball kind of accelerates as it comes off at this spot here? It's kind of slow around the top and then kind of accelerated. It caught me off guard. It's very common on this one.
Hit the flashing light. Skill shot.
Now we're going to go right into multi-ball because I've got 3 located in here. You're definitely going to get into multi-ball quite a bit in this one, so if you like multi-ball, maybe that's a plus. Oof, wow, look at that. Very tricky. Keep everything going. And with those orbits where they accelerate off on the edge, it can be very tricky, especially in multi-ball, because you don't see them coming until it's really too late. But you can see it's pretty gracious with its ball save. Oof. And you're trying to take shots, and you're trying to hit ramps and buttons and all kinds of everything that's lit up. Obviously, you're trying to hit. Doing okay, not a bad score so far. And this has all been multi-ball. I really haven't even done a mode yet. Good sound effects, very deep. Very kind of gritty, throaty, if that makes sense. Obviously, if you like Chris Pine and you like the movie, this one might be one that you really dig.
Great job.
That was not a nudge, that's actually just part of the multi-ball. You'll see the table kind of shaking around and different things. It adds some effects there as well. I think that no, it is not. I still haven't completed the multi-ball. So you can be as selective as you want. You kind of slow it down, hold a button or hold a flipper if you need to try to get certain shots. Or you can lose multiple balls at the same time, like I did there. But again, pretty gracious. I keep getting the ball back. Lots of value in this game. As you can see, there's lots of modes that are all kind of they're all pretty samey to some degree, but they actually have a lot of replay value. Getting through all of them is going to be a challenge, so that's pretty cool. Try to hit that blue shot. You can see that. See how that orbit kind of fights that off because of the angle. So look at that. It's a very difficult shot. unfortunately. But the playfield actually is a plus here because it does add some playability because it's very unique in that regard. It's unlike anything you've ever seen. Yes, it has kind of the very familiar hourglass type of shape of a pinball machine, but at the same time, there's a lot going on. I'm going to try to hit this orbit shot, but I want you to kind of see how difficult that really is. Oh, keep missing it. Try one more time here. Yeah, see how that kind of fights it off? That angle is really tough, and so you're going to get big points for that when you get there. Ah, look at that. Alright, so that gives you an indication of what Star Trek, and look at all the bonuses. Great bonus scores here. Boom, boom, boom across the board. 51 million points is pretty darn good on this game. There is some points to be had. You can definitely have some fun on this one. As I said, the modes are pretty in-depth. There's a lot going on. I really like this game. I wouldn't say it's fantastic, but I'm going to give this one a 6. Kelvin Timeline, I feel like this could be done a little bit different. This one was done by Zoltan and Batani, and he does some really good games in general. So I think he really had a vision for this one that he had to follow. There is a lot of really cool concepts here, but this one's pretty tough. Like I said, if you don't like the Kelvin Timeline, you're probably not going to like this one. If you like Deep Space Nine, I think you'll really like this pack in general, because I think that's probably the best of the three. I give Deep Space Nine a 6, Kelvin Timeline a 6, and I gave Discovery the 4. So it kind of is what it is on these ones. But let's talk about the pack itself. If I had to give the pack itself a rating, I would only give it a 6. This is a tough one to review because of the price. So if you look at the original Star Trek Next Generation, which is a Steve Ritchie table, much more popular than any of these ones being Zen created tables versus a real table. This one's only $20 for the original Star Trek Generation table. Now what's interesting about the Star Trek Generation table is that because that's considered a wide body table on a kind of a narrow 4KP aspect ratio, the gameplay is a little weird. I give this one an 8 because it's a really good game, but some of the shots with the probes are actually really difficult to do on that particular table. Why does that pertain to this table? Well, what's interesting about it now is because of the price shift on these tables, the Star Trek Pinball Pack is now $30 on the 4KP. So originally these were about $5 a piece for Discovery, Kelvin Timeline, and Deep Space Nine. At $5 a table, that was a pretty good deal. Now at $10 a table, you're like, man, I really need to like these games. And at that aspect, if you don't think you're going to like the Kelvin Timeline or any one of these particular tables, automatically the price of this becomes a real problem. $10 per game, $10 for Discovery for me is an absolute abomination. I don't like that game at all. If any of one of these games was particularly good, I could see a pretty good $30 being a pretty good price point. If you're an absolute Star Trek purist, definitely get the pack. But for the most part, I'm only going to give this a 6. The price is kind of priced itself out of what it is, unless you're an absolute fan of the series. With that is what I think of the Star Trek Pinball Pack. I hope this review was helpful in some ways. I know I didn't get to show a ton of gameplay. All of these games require a lot of extra time in looking at the rule sets because they are pretty deep in that regard. So definitely, if there's something that you like here, you may want to try these out on either Steam. There's an option to be able to try the games out for a couple minutes each and just kind of get a feel for what they feel like. I know it's really hard kind of looking at gameplay whether or not you have that actual feel to it. I will say playing on a 4KP with flipper buttons and true nudges actually makes every Zen table that much better. But again, if you don't like the source content, that one's going to hurt this one quite a bit. So anyway, hope you like this review. As we always say, you only need one ball for greatness. Keep plunging, and we'll see you next time, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.